Welcome to the CodeBreaker Mindset, where leaders share the unwritten rules for success. I'm your host, Chitra Nawbatt. Joining us today is Jill Pemberton, LVMH's North America CFO. Jill, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
LVMH, French headquartered conglomerate specializing in luxury. It's home to brands such as Louis Vuitton, Dior, Tiffany, Hennessy, Rihanna's Fenty, with revenue close to $90 billion. The Arnault family owns about 49% of the company. Tell us about LVMH and how it's different compared to competitors like Kering, who owns Gucci, Saint Laurent.
Yes, so LVMH, as you mentioned, is a French-owned company that has over 75 different brands, or what we call maisons. So as you mentioned, everything from Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, Moet Hennessy, a lot of our wine and spirits products. We're in 6 different categories, so wine and spirits, fashion and leather goods, perfumes and cosmetics, watch and jewelry, selective retailing, as well as many other categories. So I think what really makes LVMH different is the breadth of the luxury landscape in which we cover, which is a bit more than some of our other peer companies.
And take us a little bit more into that size, scale, diversity, geographic presence.
Yes,
a little bit.
So obviously global company. We here in North America make up about 25% of the global business. And again, all of those maisons are represented here in the US. Obviously China is another big area of focus for the company. And again, six different categories that we're in.
And in that high-end luxury, where exactly in the market do you play? Because there's high-end luxury, there's ultra-luxury, a little bit around your stakeholders and the value that you offer.
Sure, we kind of cover the gamut, and it actually depends on our brand. So we have some brands that are very cater mostly to the ultra high net worth individual consumer. We have other brands that have a much wider range and may also bring in what we call our aspirational luxury consumer, which is a bit on the lower end. So we have perfumes and cosmetics, which is luxury, but at a lower general price point. So you can have many more consumers be able to experience our brand. So we really do run the gamut of the luxury landscape.
Getting into a little bit of your journey, since LVMH owns fancy brands, it gets a CFO in you with 25 plus years of experience, and you come from some fancy brands yourself.
Yes.
Johnson & Johnson, Viacom. How do you go from healthcare to consumer goods and specifically luxury as a CFO?
Interesting. So yes, I've always loved working for companies that make things, products I can see, feel, touch, or things I can get on. So early in my career, I worked for Delta Airlines for 10 years, obviously very large product experience that I can see. I worked for H.J. Heinz, food company, again, wonderful products. As you mentioned, I worked for Johnson & Johnson, mostly in the consumer side of the business, so that's consumer healthcare products, and now at LVMH, which is what's better than luxury products. So really, I enjoy being close to the consumer, close to the product, being able to see, feel, touch what I'm actually responsible for.
Well, with that rich experience, you then are very versed in spotting tailwinds and headwinds in the market. So let's get into the rules of the game, because every industry company, they've got to navigate headwinds, tailwinds in the market. So in the industry that you're in, what's the top headwind and what's the top tailwind that you're seeing? And what's your unwritten rule, your hack on how to navigate that?
Yeah, I think we're in very interesting times right now, but lots of ups and downs in the industry. So if you take luxury over the last couple of years, coming out of COVID, a lot of our consumer base was at home, and so they were drinking a lot at home, and they were buying a lot of handbags and shopping online. So if you look at things now, like several other businesses, with the economy where it is, with inflation, interest rates, it is also impacting to somewhat the high-end consumer as well. Maybe is not as much as kind of the mid or lower consumer, but we're still seeing challenges in that, right? Another big piece of our business is the wine and spirits part of the business. There's definitely changing trends in that business that we need to watch out for. Health and wellness is a trend. How much people are, again, trading down within a category given the current macroeconomic environment. So I would say the headwinds right now is just like what everyone else is feeling. Tariffs, what's happening with the economy, how people are choosing to spend their money. But at the same time, we still have some positives in the environment. People are still wanting to, buy high quality goods, want to have wonderful experiences. So it's a bit of a mixed environment right now.
So on that profitable growth piece, there's pressure. I would view that there's pressure on that CFO function because it's where you've got to make
Yes.
magic out of the numbers, right? When ultimately, even in a consumer goods, especially luxury business, at the end of the day, it's still about volume. You need the volume.
Sure.
Volume will be what it's going to be, and there's only so much you can sort of push that year to year. Where then do you play around? I don't want to say play around with the numbers, but where then do you optimize on that cost side? Optimize in terms of levers that you can pull to contribute to that profitable growth.
Sure. I'm just like in any business, you have to balance growth versus the cost side of the equation. And so in an area in a time like this where you might have a bit lower growth, what is it that you need to do from the cost side of the equation to make sure you continue to have profitable growth, but also to make sure you're continuing to invest in the long term. So obviously in our environment, we're going to make sure that we have the right innovation, the right store environment for us to continue to attract and get our consumers. So it's a balance. And so that's the decisions that we make every day is how do we invest to make sure that we can continue to go long term, but at the same time, make sure that we're balancing the short term financial needs as well.
So you've been a CFO in some very tough industries, healthcare, media, now luxury consumer goods. Is there a consistent written rule, unwritten rule that has guided you in being a CFO at the highest levels in your leadership journey?
From a business perspective, as you said, it's really all about how do you make sure that you're balancing that the growth versus the cost side of the equation, and how you're making sure that you invest for the long term. Whatever the industry and the market is, whether it's food or consumer healthcare that has much lower margins than, say, luxury consumer, you still have to make sure that you are balancing that equation. And that's a decision that you make almost every day when you're determining how to invest.
And leadership principle side?
Yeah, on the leadership side, I think it's really trying to make sure that you have very good sponsors and mentors along the way to help you understand what those unwritten rules might be, so that can help kind of guide you in your career.
And what was that unwritten rule for you? What is it that you learned the hard way?
I think it's really, people tell you early in your career, you need to network, you need to really build strong relationships. And I don't think until you're further in your career, you really understand how important that is. One, for your own growth and development, but also to make sure that you are also there to sponsor, mentor others as well, so that they can achieve their career objectives as well.
Let's get into the pivots.
Sure.
What's a significant business pivot that you've led?
Sure. In one company, we were looking at our financials, and we were significantly below operating margin than some of our peer set. And so I worked with one of our core business leaders to really bring in focus on, obviously, the cost side of the equation and where we needed to reduce costs. So did a huge study and then turned into a transformation as to how could we actually reduce our SG&A cost to be able to invest back in the business. So that was a big transformation. Another company was all about our end-to-end forecasting process. So we were realizing that we were not meeting our plan consistently. So we went back and looked at all aspects of the planning cycle, from demand plan, supply plan, our category plans, and ultimately our financial budget and forecast, and kind of re-engineered that whole process so that we could make sure that we were consistently meeting our forecast.
So on that, this word signals an antenna, right? Sure. Because as a CFO, and part of business is, the reactive, proactive. Everyone wants to be proactive. So as a CFO, how do you get ahead? Mm-hmm. What are the signals that you're looking for? Like, tell us about your pattern recognition.
Well, you think you look at what's going on in the market, right? So you try to understand either what's happening with the broader macroeconomic environment, like we're dealing with right now, what your consumer, you obviously do your research and you look at what your consumer is, how they're performing, what their expectations are, and then you need to pivot based on both of those, what your peers might be up to as well. And so you continue to educate yourself both internally and externally. Data obviously is huge with AI, and that is a really big area. So we have tons of data coming into the company now. How do you analyze that data to be able to make the best decisions and provide the business with information so that they can make the best decisions possible? So we spend a lot of time focused on data and making sure we can understand it.
Well, going further on data, and you talked about AI, so artificial intelligence, it's the new norm.
Yes.
Talk about top use cases at scale where you guys are investing and the outcomes.
Sure. So in general, I think our overall Gen AI focus is on our client base and our consumers, whether that's things like clienteling or product development. How can we use technology to help make those processes more efficient and innovative? Also, on the back end as well, ChatGPT, we have an internal ChatGPT system that we encourage our employees and team members to use and get comfortable with so that we can also be more efficient in, I'd say, finance or HR or other areas of the business at the same time.
And on the consumer side, because going on the word consumer, what's your thoughts on next horizons of innovation? Because ultimately in consumer goods, retail, especially luxury, you got to keep it shiny, you got to keep it sexy, you got to keep upping the experience component.
Sure.
What do you see as the next horizon of innovation?
That's a great question, and we talk a lot about, especially over the last couple of years with the growth of e-commerce and online versus the in-store experience. And we've talked about that, like, what is the role of the store? How is it that we can bring our clients into the store versus just buying something online? So I think an increased area of innovation is what you can do in the store environment. So obviously we have several stores that we renovate every year, and so how do you bring something new and fresh? I'm sure everyone has seen our Louis Vuitton store on Fifth Avenue will be under renovation. We have a big, huge kind of trunk display right now, and so continuing to reinvent our flagships and bring something new to our consumers is what we want to do.
And bringing that together, is there an example where you talk about the impact to the customer experience with the AI, the data, the insights connecting to that customer experience? Is there an example in terms of what that looks like?
Yeah, I think that the teams are currently kind of looking through that now with all the information to see what we can gather from the data to see if that helps inform us of where we might be able to use better innovation or use different services in our store experience. Those are things that we're looking at every day.
Let's get into the magic. How do you define serendipity, and where has serendipity played a significant role in a business outcome?
In a business outcome. I can answer from a personal outcome, necessarily from a business outcome. I think, being at the right place at the right time. Early in my career, I was at a company, and I had mentioned that it's a global company. I had mentioned that I wanted to work externally or internationally at some point in my career, and I'd been working there for about a year, and then all of a sudden I get a call from my boss saying, "Hey, I'm going back to work in Europe, and I want you to come with me. I think this will be a great experience." And that was kind of a moment of kind of serendipity, being at the right place at the right time, and ended up having a fabulous couple of years working in Europe. And so I think the combination of things working out at the right time with, as I mentioned earlier, kind of sponsors and mentors can help add that to your career.
And what's your process when things don't go the way that you would like? If you can tell us about maybe a situation where, quote unquote, there was failure or something that didn't work out.
Sure.
How you dealt with that, how you recover.
Yep, that's a great question. Yes, so things don't always work out the way we think they are, especially in your career. It's never a straight line, and I think really just having the resilience to continue moving forward. And I think you need to learn from whatever it is, the mistake or the failure you may have, whether it's from a business context, you made a decision that didn't necessarily work out the way you wanted to, whether it's a business decision, a hiring decision, or your career isn't necessarily working out the way you want it to. And you have that failure, I think you learn from it and you move on.
But how do you build that resilience? Because it's hard.
Yes,
it's hard, especially over a career lifespan. A long time ago, someone gave me this analogy. You squeeze the toothpaste and you think there's nothing there, and you squeeze and you get something a little out. And that was his advice around digging deep within a person. Like, what's your process? How do you actually build that resilience?
One, resilience comes from having to experience that a couple of times. I think each time you experience, you understand that, okay, things are going to be okay. So the next time you might have a failure, you say, okay, I'm going to learn from it, but I know things will be okay, things will work out. And so each time you kind of build that resilience, but you continue to kind of take a step back for a couple of minutes, ground yourself, and then you move forward.
Jill, what's your advice on how to cultivate the CodeBreaker mindset?
I think, it's all about, setting a goal, having an objective, and then being able to kind of envision the steps that you need to get to that goal or objective. And I think just having that process in mind, whether it's a career objective, a business objective, is, to be able to have that goal but set kind of the small path that you need to take to get there. Sometimes you need to course correct along the way, but continue to have the goal in mind and continue to have persistence and resilience to get there.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for supporting the CodeBreaker Mindset. For more episodes, go to www.chitranawbatt.com to like and subscribe. Connect with me on social media at Chitra Nawbatt.